Angelique Ashby was first elected to the Sacramento City Council representing District 1 in 2010. Known as a tireless fighter for her district, Councilwoman Ashby joins us today to reflect on her battles, her successes, and her thoughts about the future of Sacramento. Angelique, what advice does Councilwoman Ashby of 2021 know today that she wishes that she could give first-time candidate Angelique Ashby in 2010?
It's a great question. One of my favorite sayings is there are only two people in the world that you need to worry about what they think. One is 8-year-old you, and the other is 80-year-old you. And so I love this kind of question because you do wish you want to make 8-year-old you proud and 80-year-old you proud. I think I would tell 2010 me, you're doing fine. Just keep going. Don't worry about the little things. Just push forward and keep working as hard as you can. I think of, as I look back over the last decade of my career, I'm really proud of everything that I've accomplished, but I also probably stressed myself out more times than I needed to. So maybe that would be my advice. Enjoy the ride and don't worry so much about the little things.
When you first came upon the political scene and you ran your first campaign, share with us how your story was different from the pedigree of the typical city council member that served in Sacramento.
Yeah, I definitely come from a different place than most of the people before me. When I ran in 2010, first of all, I didn't come from any politics. I didn't work in politics. I never worked on anybody else's campaign. I just really loved my community and my neighborhood and wanted to see what I could do to help. And the more I got involved, the more it seemed like we needed a different kind of voice at City Hall. And so I ran as a community activist, but that's not really a new thing. Lots of community activists end up on the council. I think what's different about me is that first of all, I went to Sac High in our inner city here in Sacramento. And after I graduated, I got pregnant at age 19. So I had a baby by the time I was 20. And I raised him for the first 6 years on my own here in our city. I lived in low-income housing here. I used subsidized childcare, great program called Child Action that I still believe in firmly to this day. And, I used food stamps, really important to me. It's how I fed my baby. And I put myself through UC Davis undergrad, and I put myself through McGeorge Law School. I had to go at night because I worked full-time during the day and raised my son on my own. But I think those experiences taught me to work hard, juggle big priorities, and, pursue big dreams. And so by the time I ran for council, I was the youngest member when I got there. And, a young mom. I had a baby while I was on the city council too. I'm the only person in the history of the city of Sacramento to be vice mayor and pregnant and run a meeting on a Tuesday and have a baby on this Thursday of that week. So I'm pretty proud of those things, though. I've basically just lived my life and been myself. And at the same time, had the just tremendous opportunity to serve this city that I love.
How does that uniqueness in all of what you just said, how do you think that showed up in you participating and contributing to the policies and the actions that you and your colleagues were considering for Sacramento at that time?
Well, probably the most meaningful way is I've been on the council for 11 years, and two other sort of remarkable or unusual things about me. One, I spent more than half of that time as the only female on the city council. And so, here I am, the only woman, but I'm also this mom. I have 3 kids. I've been a single mom before. I think those experiences really changed the direction of many of the policies in the council. For example, I pushed hard for a diversity and equity office, which we now have. I worked hard on bias. I put out a gender report card. I fought for women to rise through the ranks in the city. I fought for women's programming and women's businesses and homeless women and children programs. And I think that entire dynamic would have been different if I had not chosen to run for city council. And the other thing I think it did is I've also spent more than half of my time on that council in a leadership role as either vice mayor or mayor pro tem. I think that's in part because of my work ethic, because those roles are really about a mayor saying to you, hey, I'd like your help. Will you help me with citywide priorities in addition to what you're doing on the council? And I think my work ethic and my ability to try to bring everyone together and seek higher ground as a whole all come from my experiences in law school and as a single mom and running a business and all those things.
Well, going back, taking all of that, but going back to when you first started, what motivated you to get involved and to run for office in the first place? Since it doesn't sound like that was, you didn't really have the political itch that so many people running for office do.
Yeah, I did not. I did not. It's a great question again. So one thing I've noticed is a lot of people who run from a position of political advocacy are really angry or frustrated with the system. I was not. I was so grateful, Scott. In 2003, I graduated from law school. I was 1 year into being married. My husband and I were able to buy a house with the help of my dad in this beautiful new community called North Natomas. It was like all of these things that I'd been working so hard for were coming true for me. I wasn't angry or bitter at all. I was grateful. My heart was just full. And when I looked around and saw that we needed a stop sign or, we needed a grocery store or whatever, lots of people were frustrated about it. My approach was more like, let me help, because how wonderful that I get to fight for a neighborhood I never even expected to be a homeowner, much less have the opportunity to help get a fire station built. And so I think that heart of gratitude has been my North Star and continues to be. I really think you get a lot more done when you're looking for the positive.
That that's interesting in terms of what sort of led you or inspired you in the first place. One of the things that you're known for is being a tireless fighter for your district. And in some cases, you've highlighted how your district, in terms of its needs, as one of the few growth areas within the city, has been left without certain things along the way. What has changed in Natomas or in District 1 in the tenure of your service from what you were lacking to where things stand today?
Well, when I inherited this district, you couldn't build here. It was in a building moratorium. The levees had been decertified by the Army Corps of Engineers, and the floodplain was a real issue. We lacked fire stations. The school district was on the verge of state takeover, nearing bankruptcy. The schools were overcrowded and needed work. There were parks not built everywhere, dozens of them. There were a lot of problems, a lot. There was a great need for grocery stores and connections, roads that just ended, sidewalks that didn't connect. And largely, it felt like North Natomas was a good idea at one point, but that the investment hadn't been made to really make it come to fruition. And so I could look at the district and see very clearly with my eyes that investment and infrastructure and resources were needed. And I've dedicated myself to that end over the last 10 years. So our roads connect now. Major thoroughfares have been put in, the bike lanes are in, the grocery stores are there. We've recruited big businesses like Centene, Fortune 100 company with 5,000 high wage jobs. We got out of the building moratorium, fought hard for a congressional act, all of those things, passed 2 school bonds, built 3 schools, 7 parks, massive investment. School district is at the top of the region.
So all impressive achievements. What's been the biggest defeat that you say, that's the one that got away? You still didn't get it yet, that you hope for Natomas?
If I had a checklist in my mind, I would say that the only box left unchecked that I need to address, or that I have tried very hard to address and worked really hard on for the last probably 10 years, is a reuse at the Natomas Arena site. That's a big challenge because it's a big ask, and that is
Well,
the last
yeah,
box for me to check.
and a lot of us are wondering, Sleep Train has sat there empty for a while now. Uh, what's next? What can you tell us?
So this is a great question, especially for today. Scott, big things happening in Natomas. I will finally have the opportunity to check that last box for myself. One of the reasons why Sleep Train has been such a challenge in its reuse is that the bar was set, largely by myself, very high. We wanted an economic engine, something that draws down jobs, something that contributes back to this community. It could never just be housing. It could never just be retail. It had to be something special that replaced for the people in this part of the city an economic engine that they lost to downtown. And so, fighting to that end, I've said no to many projects and been in many fights with folks who brought things forward. But right now, I'm very happy to tell you that the former Sleep Train site will be the home to California North State Hospital, their teaching hospital and their medical campus.
Wow, that is it. That is really great news. And so,
It's huge.
so the
Yeah.
plan is to relocate that hospital from, or that teaching facility from Elk Grove. Will it take up the entire footprint of Sleep Train?
So the plan is to build a brand new hospital. It's about 11 stories high, has helicopter pads. It will be a new hospital in the Sacramento region, the first built after the pandemic. So all of the bells and whistles that you would want in place for modern day medicine. It's a teaching hospital, much like UC Davis, attached to a medical school. The medical school does currently already exist in Elk Grove. It will move up to the site to be in the same location as the hospital. Eventually, they'll grow their health and science campus to include dental, pharmaceutical, and nursing. But phase one will be a medical school and a hospital.
And when is it anticipated that they will start to break ground?
Well, they are several years into the process because they were looking at other places in the region that fell through. So she'll be pretty quick. They hope to break ground and be grading by the beginning of next year. And they're entering into an agreement on the property. You asked me how much acreage. It's about 35 acres out of 180. But the rest of the site will be master planned around the concept of having a hospital on the site, which was the original and first ask of all of the people in Natomas and in Sacramento. In 2011, then Assembly Member Pan, now Senator Pan, and I started an offshoot of the Think Big program called Think Big Natomas to start talking about what a best and highest use would be on that arena site. And hospital ranked #1.
If I recall, at one point there was consideration by Kaiser
There was.
for that site as well. Well,
And ultimately
congratulations.
Kaiser, thank you. And ultimately Kaiser selected the rail yards, which is a great spot for the city of Sacramento as well.
Coming back to your work on the council, you mentioned the fact that for a very long time, you were the only elected female on the council.
Yeah.
Your numbers have grown and you have two newly elected colleagues. Do you have any advice for them as they start to make their own journey on the council and
Yeah.
look to have impact and significance with their work?
Well, they're the same age that I was when I joined the council. So hopefully they have the same kind of longevity and spend a decade learning the ropes and putting in effort for the city of Sacramento. They're both very intelligent women. Their life trajectories are quite different than mine. I'm a mom with kids and law degree and all of that, and they're very different. They have different focuses and emphasis, and they have had very different life experiences than me. They both bring a lot to the table. I talk to them a lot. I sometimes when I have advice for them, I call and tell them it's big sister mode. Let me tell you something. What I hope for them is that they find the ability to balance all that's happening in their lives as young single women, along with being fierce advocates for the city of Sacramento, and that they find joy in both sides of those parts of their life. They're both good people. They both deserve to have really wonderful lives and really meaningful and successful professional development. So I hope that for both of them. My advice to them is to go easy on themselves, because they're women do tend to be pretty darn hard on themselves, especially when they're new and or young and in a big role. And so I tell them both all the time, you belong here, you earned your spot here. Just, pull your chair up to the table and speak your piece.
You talk about being a fierce advocate, and your advice to them about going easy on themselves sound like they're grounded in deep experience. What has been your experience and even difficulties because of your gender in being that fierce advocate for your district and frankly for the city itself?
Well, there's nothing so blatant that it's just really easy to see, because it's all very unintentional, the bias. I've had dozens of colleagues. Every seat at the dais has changed, every single one, including the clerk and the city attorney and the city manager, some of them more than once in the time that I've been there. So I've had a lot of colleagues over the last 10 years, and none of them were outwardly, sexist, but there's just so much in our society that sets women back. Things like access to childcare, or just the good old boys network. The fact that I said many times in different, venues and for different reasons, that my friendship circle is not the political circle. There aren't even other, who would that even be, right? This city hasn't elected a female senator or assembly member to our state legislature in 20 years. The women on the board of supervisors, of which there's also only one now, there used to be two, are both Republicans, and neither one elected in the city of Sacramento. I, for many years, was a unicorn as a woman Democrat elected above a school board level in the city of Sacramento. It's very sad, because 51% of the population not represented.
Well,
So that creates a lot of frustration.
when you talk about though the being an advocate, being a fierce advocate, all those sorts of things, those are adjectives. The other side of adjectives are labels. And for not only other young women who might be watching this conversation and thinking about also doing their part in improving their city or their region, what can you tell them about how you deal with those situations where it is that, whether it's unconscious or not, the bias that it sounds like the bias you felt was real, but you've obviously rose above that to continue? What can you say to them?
First of all, that's really a profound statement that you made, Scott, that the flip side of, of advocacy is that our labels. You're right. I mean, it's so true. I think there are a lot of labels placed on me that aren't placed on others, even when they say the same thing that I said, right? It's always difficult to have your voice be heard and taken seriously. And I've worked really hard to build a platform, not only for myself, but for other women. I've also worked really hard to keep that door open, kick it open if I have to, and pull other women through as best that I can. And not just to the city council, but to whatever seat they're trying to run for. If they're the most qualified candidate, I'll do everything I can to help them. And those labels are so harmful and hurtful. And I will tell you one thing, I have an almost all female staff now, but it took me a little while to feel like I could do that, in part because I needed to feel like I could defend them as well as myself. So I wanted to have a skill set in place that I felt confident I could defend my staff and defend myself and be successful for my district and not have my gender be a detriment to District 1. I think I have overcome that hurdle, but it has been through sheer will and many a fight. So
Mhm. One,
it's a
one of the
really
areas,
profound thing that you said.
mhm. One of the areas where some have criticized you is on the issue of police and fire. And the notion is that um, you are not really willing to take on issues that are in opposition to police and fire. How do you respond to that?
Anybody who says that isn't paying attention to the city council meeting, and they would be just placing a label on me that they think fits based on what they see when they look at my face or their perception of what they think Natomas is, because they would absolutely be dead wrong. Sacramento Police Department is the only one in the region that wears body cameras. I wrote that legislation and pushed it through. Sacramento's the only one that passed the Black Lives Matter national policy 8 that can't wait. That was co-sponsored by myself and council member Larry Carr. I pushed it through. I got the votes. Sacramento was the first big city in California to adopt Breonna's law. Of course, you know the tragedy of Breonna Taylor caught in the crossfire of a no-knock raid warrant. I brought that forward and pushed it all the way across the finish line, making Sacramento the first to end no-knock raid warrants in California. I've done a lot of things. I pushed for pension reform. I'm the one who changed those rules for police and fire. And I would say that my relationships with public safety have actually afforded us the opportunity to be more progressive than we would have been without having a relationship of trust to build on. And I'll tell you another thing, I think policy changes are great and meaningful when they're handled correctly. But what Sacramento really needed was leadership change. And I absolutely championed that too, because I'm the person who fought for Daniel Hahn to come be the police chief. And if you want to change the rank and file and the way that the police department has always been, a culture change, that has to change from the inside out. That's not going to be changed by directives made from a council. That has to be changed by leadership inside the department. And Daniel Hahn is a friend. He is a wonderful human being. He went to Sac High. He was raised in Oak Park. He's very connected to this community. And I think he's done more good for the department than any policy that we could pass, just by being himself and leading from a place in his heart of what he sees, where the community can come together with the police department and change the way we relate to one another. So I think I've absolutely been a leader in the area of progressive change around public safety. Whether I get credit for it or not is a whole nother story.
In terms of credit, tell us a little bit about this. We've talked about a lot of big things that you've done. Give us one small thing that over your tenure that you've done or that you've affected that really you carry with you because it gives you a lot of satisfaction.
Well, this is not a small thing, but it is a thing that people don't talk about very often about me. And it is, I say often to my staff, I think it's the most important thing I've done. I have a youth advisory committee. I started it when I was a candidate in 2010, and it was just a couple dozen young people that were at the high school that wanted to work on a nonpartisan campaign. So they came and worked with me. It worked out really well. And so I turned it into an official thing. We call it our YAC, the Youth Action Corps. And it's 1,000 kids strong, Scott. There's 1,000 kids in it every year. They do on average about 30 hours of community service with us, mostly in the park, planting trees. They might be helping with my farmer's market or my movie nights, which are huge, thousands of people, or a helicopter egg drop that we decide to do. but they get involved. And if I walk onto the campus of any of the high schools in my area, I promise you there will be dozens of kids that come up to me and know me by name and feel like they're very connected to their city council member. And I think that is probably the most meaningful thing I've done, is connect our youth to their government.
And in our final moments, just a few seconds, what's next for Angelique Ashby?
Well, I'm a candidate for the state Senate, endorsed by the outgoing Senator, Dr. Richard Pan, and I'm hopeful that people will see fit to promote me and give me the opportunity to take my brand of leadership region-wide. I'm looking forward to the opportunity and excited.
And I think we'll leave it there.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And that's our show. Thanks to our guests, and thanks to you for watching Studio Sacramento. I'm Scott Syphax. See you next time right here on KVIE. All episodes of Studio Sacramento, along with other KVIE programs, are available to watch online at kvie.org/video.